Hello and welcome to Sniff with Steph. I really appreciate you guys clicking on this video. Thanks for all the support. So today we're going to talk about 10 fragrances that are extremely popular that just don't do it for me. I'm extremely picky with fragrances. I don't buy full bottles of things unless I absolutely adore them, and that's just how I am. So there are a lot of fragrances that everyone else loves that I just cannot get on board with, and today we're going to talk about them. Hopefully you guys can get some knowledge from this video and figure out if we have the same taste, and if so, this channel is right for you. So let's get into all the hate, shall we? As always, if you like my content, like and subscribe down below. I really appreciate all the support, and let's get to it. So the first fragrance I'm going to talk about is Burberry Her. Burberry Her is something that a lot of people talk about, and they call it a Baccarat Rouge dupe. For me, I cannot stand the opening of Burberry Her. It's a really overly sweet, synthetic berries note, like strawberry and some other berries, and it really just makes me nauseous. Like, I honestly felt like I was gonna throw up when I smelled it. It's too sweet, it's too artificial, and those really syrupy sweet berry notes remind me of cough syrup. The dry down, yes, has a very strong resemblance to Baccarat Rouge, but I cannot get past that opening, and I would just rather have Baccarat Rouge or one of the Ariana Grande fragrances. So sorry, Burberry Her, but you're not for me. Next fragrance is Olympia by Paco Rabanne. So for me, I can't do super synthetic fragrances. I like my fragrances to smell somewhat natural. They can't be screechy and they can't be sharp. And I love vanilla fragrances. I love very sweet fragrances, but I tried Olympia and I just couldn't do it. There was something about it that was too artificial, too screechy, and just didn't sit right with my nose. Maybe it was that salt note that was just a little too much, but usually I'm a fan of really strong, sweet, vanillic, ambery fragrances. Yeah, but I don't know. Olympia was just too artificial for me. I couldn't do it. And I know so many people adore that fragrance and they find it so sexy and so alluring. Maybe I'll revisit it one day. And I also kind of want to try the intense version because I've heard that's less salty and more vanillic and ambery. So maybe I'll haul that fragrance in the future. But for now, I just can't do it. The next fragrance that's just not for me is Kirk by Tiziana Terenzi. This is another one that is too artificial to my nose. It's a very fruity, sweet, musky fragrance. I can do musk when it's Narciso Rodriguez musk, but some musks are just too strong for me. And that coupled with this really synthetic, sweet fruit notes, honestly, it's one of those fragrances I cannot stand. The other one that's in the same vein as this is Erba Pura by Xerjoff. If you saw my Xerjoff video, check it out if you haven't. Erba Pura is almost identical to Kirk. It's that same extremely synthetic, sweet fruitiness with that intense musk. And for me, it's just a no-go. I can't do that kind of fragrance. And it gets so much hype and people love it. So I was really disappointed that I didn't like either of those fragrances. But what I'm learning about myself once again is if things are too sweet and too synthetic, my nose just can't take it and it makes me sick. The next fragrance I want to talk about is one that I wanted to try for the longest time. I was fiending after a sample for this forever. And when I finally got my nose on it, I was so disappointed. And that is Black Phantom by Kilian. Black Phantom, for me, smells like peanut butter. And I was with my best friend at the time. We were both smelling it together and she agreed too. It smells like a really natural peanut butter and it's not sweet enough for me. I love all the notes in Black Phantom, so that's why I was so pumped to try it. But all blended together the way it is, something about it just reminds me of a no sugar added natural peanut butter. It's too dense, it's too thick, it's not sweet enough, and it's just not feminine enough. And I know this is also a crowd favorite, so maybe I'll revisit it one day, but for now, I'm not trying to smell like Skippy. The next fragrance I want to talk about is Delena Exclusive by Parfums de Marly. And I know it's a shocker. Don't come for me in the comments. The thing is, I love Delina. I have a bottle of Delina. It's one of my favorite fragrances of all time. But when I tried Delena Exclusive, it was just too powdery for me. Something I've also started to realize about myself is that I can't do fragrances that are extremely powdery. I don't mind a little bit of powder, but to a point. If a fragrance is too powdery, to me, it just starts smelling like Johnson's & Johnson's baby powder. It smells like straight talc. So I don't want to smell like talc. That's the thing. And I tried Delina Exclusive a couple times, and that baby powder note was just too much for me. I couldn't do it. And although I did recognize the original Delina in there, I so prefer the original. It's lighter, it's fruitier, you get that sour touch. That's my favorite part of the fragrance. That's not really there in Delina Exclusive. So unfortunately, it just wasn't for me. Next, we have one that is a classic fragrance that many people love, and this is Gucci Bloom. I cannot do Gucci Bloom, guys. I don't really like tuberose that much, especially when it's a strong green tuberose, right? White florals in general are very hit or miss for me. And when I smelled Gucci Bloom, I just couldn't do it. It's too mature for me. It's too green. The white floral is very heady and very in your face. If you're not a die-hard white floral tuberose fan and you don't mind green fragrances, then I guess that's why people like Gucci Bloom. But for me, I absolutely had no tolerance for it. To me, it just smelled too old lady, too mature, and it was not appealing at all. Let's talk about one that I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of hate for, and people are gonna come for me because every fragrance reviewer loves this perfume, and that is Poison Girl EDT and EDP by Dior. I love Hypnotic Poison. That's one of my favorite fragrances. But for me, when I smelled Poison Girl, all I get is this really sweet, syrupy orange blossom. And I am not a giant fan of orange blossom. Yet again, another white floral when it's prominent in a fragrance, I feel like that's all I can smell. Is it just me, or when you don't like a note, is that note the only thing that really stands out to you? It just takes over the entire fragrance. Everyone was describing Poison Girl as this sweet, almond, rosy, sexy fragrance. And when I smelled it, all I got was extremely sweet, synthetic orange blossom. And it was just not my vibe at all. Another fragrance that was the exact same experience for me was Girl of Now by Elie Saab. I was so disappointed when I tried this fragrance. I was expecting this delicious almond, fluffy, sweet pistachio fragrance, and I love sweet, nutty fragrances. So I was sure I was gonna adore it. And then to my dismay, when I tried it, all I got was this extremely syrupy, sweet orange blossom fragrance. No one really talks about the orange blossom in Girl of Now, and I think again that's because I don't like orange blossom that much, so when it's heavy in fragrances, that's all I can smell. And it's such a bummer because I really wish I got what other people got from Girl of Now. Such a widely loved fragrance. Bums me out, man. Next fragrance is Fantasy by Britney Spears. Maybe it's just because I'm not a huge fan of celebrity fragrances, but when I smelled Fantasy, I was utterly disappointed. It was too synthetic, and all I smelled was just sweetness. I couldn't smell anything else. It was just like, I couldn't even identify all the notes. It was just this really sickly, sweet, fruitiness that was extremely artificial and synthetic to me, and I just couldn't hang. And I know so many people rave about Fantasy, and I just couldn't do it, guys. It was way too basic for me and just had no depth whatsoever. So that was my experience with Fantasy by Britney Spears. And lastly, this is a fragrance that I was also so excited to try. So many people on YouTube adore it and talk about it and rave about it. And this is YSL's Manifesto. When I got Manifesto, I was expecting this really delicious vanilla fragrance. And all I really got was a green powdery scent. Once again, I think that when there's a certain amount of powder in a fragrance, that's all I smell. It was just like a talc bomb to my nose. I'm also not great with green fragrances. I don't like super earthy green notes. So to my nose, all I really got was a lot of powder, not a lot of sweetness. I was expecting it to be way sweeter than it was, and this greenness in the beginning that I wasn't a fan of. So although it was soft and enveloping and I could see why people liked it, I just didn't do it for me at all. There you have it, guys. Those are 10 fragrances that I really wanted to like, but just couldn't. I hope you liked this video, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.